go ahead and continue with California head coach Sonny Dykes.
Okay, let's get this thing rolling. Hey, I just wanted to start off by saying Rich wanted me to be sure and remind everybody this is the 100th anniversary of the Pac-12. He asked me to make sure that everybody knew that in case there was any questions about it. Excited to be here at Media Day. You know, this is, for all intents and purposes, the beginning of the college football season for us as coaches and I think our players, and it certainly gets us in the frame of mind. You start seeing the other coaches, the other players, you start thinking about competing against these guys, and it gets you excited. It's certainly daunting. The Pac-12 is in my opinion, the best conference in college football right now, from top to bottom. It's incredibly competitive. It's very well coached. I think this league has as good a coaches as there is across the country. Outstanding football players. And I think the difference probably now than even 5-6 years ago is I think the universities have made a commitment to football, and they understand how important it is for the overall health of the athletic department. So it's a competitive league. Exciting time to be here. I want to recognize Jared Goff and Hardy Nickerson in the back there. I'm very fortunate to have an opportunity to work with young men like these guys. You know, they're just good people. They're guys that get it. They get what college football is all about. They both have tremendous respect for the game, as I do. They do things the right way on and off the field. They're incredibly unselfish, and to me, they're what's good about college football. And both of them are second-generation Cal student athletes. You know, Jared's dad was a baseball and football player at Cal, and obviously Hardy's dad was a very successful football player at Cal. And these guys love the university. They get it, and couldn't be more fortunate to work with young people like this. I think our football team is much like that. You know, we have a team that has gone through some hard times. Certainly, our start at Cal was very difficult. We made tremendous progress last year. You know, we were a little disappointed in the way the season ended, but we certainly felt like we improved our program in a lot of different ways. We've really grown up as a program. We fixed our academic issues. I couldn't be more proud of our student athletes and their buy-in in regards to improving our academics. And we think the success on the field is going to follow. It's important for us to keep improving. That's what this year is all about improving, taking that next step, and becoming a consistent program that competes for championships, and that's where we want to go. So excited to get started and anticipate having a great competitive season, and look forward to competing against the best week in and week out in the Pac-12. Well, our thing's a little different. You know, we're a little limited on who we can recruit based on our academic standards, and we get it, we appreciate it. You know, we think it allows us to recruit a little bit different kid. Certainly getting a degree at Cal appeals to people across the country. You know, if you're a high academic kid anywhere across the United States and Cal's recruiting you and you really are committed to high academics, we're going to be in the mix. And so we think it's a tremendous help that way. But it does reduce maybe the number of guys that we can recruit. You know, there are some players that we are unable to recruit now because of those increased standards. And we get it, we understand it. And, that's been a little bit of a challenge for us is you know, finding those players and figuring that system out. But we think we're in a good spot right now.
Sonny, talk a little bit about hiring new cornerbacks, coach. Was that kind of in the works for a while, or?
Yeah, it was quite a long process, really. You know, we had an opening in April, and at that time, you know, my thought was to go hire you know, we had two options. At that point, I could hire a running backs coach or I could hire a receivers coach. I talked to Tony a little bit about it. We liked our situation with him coaching the running backs, and felt like it was important to have quarterbacks and running backs in the same meeting room together. Felt like that was really going to improve both of them. You know, I had a desire to get back on the field and coach a position. And so, you know, through discussions, we started thinking, you know what, I'd like to hire a defensive guy. And then at that point, it's okay, who's available? And so, you know, through conversations with different people, John's name kept coming up. Obviously, he and Art had worked together. And it was a long process getting him on board. But the great thing about hiring John is there's no learning curve. He understands Art's defense. And he'll come in from day one and have a great understanding and great knowledge of what Art wants and the way he wants to get things done. It also gives us an ability to have, two coaches in a position that we need to improve dramatically at. I have a lot of respect for Greg Burns and his ability to coach. I think Greg, working just with the safeties, will help bring those guys along. We're going to have to get some new players to play for us at that position. And so I think it's going to allow Greg to focus on improving those guys and getting them ready.
You've had the 125th or last passing defense each of the last 2 years, bringing 8 new guys in for that position. How much are we going to see that back end change?
Well, we think dramatically. We hope. That's the interesting thing is when you look at the number of passes attempted against us. I think we had almost 70 more than anybody else in college football. Defended 70 more passes. So the numbers are, numbers are numbers. Sometimes they don't tell a complete story, but certainly we have to get better on the back end. We understand it, and and we got to improve our pass rush. I mean, the better your pass rush, the better your coverage is, and those things don't change. If you're covering the guys tighter, then you're going to have a tendency to get more sacks. So those two positions play off each other. We've got to get more production from our linebackers, and we think we will. So I expect our defense to make a big jump. I really do. I'm excited about it. We're bigger, stronger, more talented. Excited to get, James Lee and see what he brings to our defense. Excited to get Moose more healthy than he's ever been. We look forward to again, the additions in the back end and what that's going to mean to us from a depth standpoint. I think Kyle Cragen is going to have a big year. He had to sit out last year when he got mono, and so there's all these different pieces, and excited to see what Devontae Wilson can do at that defensive end spot. So, we think we have an opportunity to have a good defense.
Sonny,
Jared as a third-year starter, what changes? I mean, how much do you start to give him responsibility on the field where he can do a lot more stuff at the line of scrimmage? I mean, how does that work for you?
He has had so many snaps. I think the number of snaps a quarterback has and their performance often go hand in hand. And Jared has, played a lot of football for us. And the more snaps he plays, the more comfortable he gets. The more the game slows down, the more he anticipates throws, the more he gets on the same page with the wide receivers, and all of those things are a process. And luckily he's been there and going through that process for a long time, and those receivers have been there with him for a long time. And the more those guys are together, the more they get on the same page, and the more they get on the same page, the higher degree that they execute. And so we expect our offense to improve dramatically as well. To me, Jared took a big step between year 1 and year 2. I thought Jared even took a bigger step between year 2 and spring football. When at the end of the spring, I thought he was a completely different player than he was last fall. And that's the kind of improvement that we want him to take. If he can get his completion percentage up to the high 60s, I think that's going to be big for our program.
But does he have some responsibilities at line of scrimmage?
Yeah, he
increase
does.
this year?
He does, sure. The more he plays, the more decisions he can make, the more we're going to let him make those decisions, and if he's comfortable making them. In the past, we put so much on his plate, we didn't want to put too much, because the worst thing you can do is overload your quarterback. And so we've tried to adjust the decisions we allow him to make based on what he's comfortable making. And he's comfortable making those decisions now, and so as a result, he'll have an opportunity to get us in and out of more plays. We'll give him more freedom on where he's going to go with the ball than we have in the past, and I think that's going to help our offense.
how's your offensive line shaping up, Sonny, and what specifically happened to Cochran?
Well, we think our offensive line's going to be good. I mean, we've got, if you look at us, Rigsby's played a lot of football for us for a long time. Chris Barrios played a lot of football for us for a long time. Stephen Morris played a lot of football for us for a long time. Coming into the year, it was important to get the right tackle position solidified. That was going to be really big for us going into spring football. Brian Farley's a guy that we kind of kept wanting him to take over that position. He's got good size. He's a really good athlete, and he took a big step in the spring. I'm not so sure during spring football he wasn't one of our best 1 or 2 offensive linemen, and so that was a big question that got answered for us. We hated to lose Matt, and that's one of those things that happens. I'm not going to really go into it too much. It's kind of a personal matter, and he's just not going to be with us. So, next man's got to step up. We have a lot of options with, we can move Rigsby around. Rigsby has played center for us in the past. This is something that we have been planning for. It's something that happened in April, and so we have had a lot of time to prepare. So we feel like we're in a good position.
So Cochran's departure was his decision?
I'm not really going to say. Yeah, it wasn't, but I'm not going to say.
It wasn't his decision? You can't say
don't really want to get into it. Yeah.
Could Uluwambe potentially slot in at center?
Yeah, we'll see. Not at center. I think tough for a true freshman to jump into that center position. Addison Nunes has been somebody who we've really liked. Was our backup center all year last year. Fortunately, we didn't have to play him. He was able to redshirt. He's certainly going to be in the mix competing. So we've got a lot of options. We've got some guys that we think can play those guard positions if we had to move Rigsby. And Rigsby's been a very good center for us when he's had to play. And so our goal is always to find the best 5 guys and get them on the field. And if that means Rigsby bumps to center, that's what we'll do. So all those are questions that will get answered quickly in fall camp.
Are McClure and Pyatt not ready just yet?
They're both going to be brought along slowly. I think that, I think McClure is probably ahead of schedule. We thought he would be, somebody that we had to really manage the early part of fall camp, and he's come along a little bit further, and we think Griffin's right on schedule. So, the thing that you don't want to do is throw those guys in from day one and re-injure them. And so we'll monitor both of their reps, and we'll bring them along as we see fit.
So they'll be ready to go by the All-Pro.
We anticipate, yeah.
Coach, are some of the defensive numbers a bit deceiving? And the pace, the Franklin offense is so fast-paced, and tempo of the game. You're not like Navy. You're not going to slow it down.
Yeah. Look, we have to get better. I'm not going to try to make excuses for us, but yeah. The numbers are a little bit skewed, without a doubt. And as I said earlier, our pass defense was the worst in the country, but again, people attempted, I think, 74 more passes against us than anybody else. And so, they're probably going to complete at least a couple of those passes. It's probably going to have a statistical, kind of create a statistical anomaly a little bit. But we got to get better. We know it. We're going to address it. Yeah, I think so. Look, I'd rather play against bad defenses. Because you look at it 2 ways. What we have to do as a program, we got to build some confidence. And the way you do that is by beating good people. And if we can beat a good San Diego State team, it'll give us some confidence to go compete against a good Texas team as well. That's the next step for us, is winning those tough games against good competition. And a lot of that has to do with your confidence and your belief and ability to get it done.
What have you
been
noticed?
debriefed on the history, the backstory with Texas and Cal from 2004?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah. Mac's a friend, and we've talked a little bit about it. It's interesting because, it seems like a lot of people are upset at Mac, and all he was trying to do was help his team, his program. But I get it. I totally get it. We played that Cal team, Texas Tech in the
Holiday Bowl?
Holiday Bowl that year. No, thanks. The Holiday Bowl that year. That was as talented a college football team as I've ever seen. When Marshawn Lynch is your third team tailback, that's a pretty good football team. And they had great players across the board. But yeah, I think it's a big game for Cal fans. I really do, because that does exist. There is that. There is that argument that Cal, you could make that argument very easily that Cal should have been to Rose Bowl that year. I know it's been at least, 5 or 6 years since they've been to the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think 1959. Yeah.
Coach, what have you noticed out of Jared Goff's demeanor as people are kind of labeling him a Heisman candidate, potential
It hasn't changed at all. That's the great thing about Jared is he doesn't care. He loves Cal, he loves his teammates. He's much more concerned with helping our program than he is, putting up numbers or helping improving his draft stock or any of that kind of stuff. And so, we had some conversations about about it. You know, we tried to get ahead of it and say, look, when these things come out, now you're going to be highly rated and you're going to get besieged by people that are want to grab onto you and all that stuff. And him and his parents said, yeah, we get it. And then it happened, and they were like, whoa, and Mel Kiper, I think, came out and said he was going to be the first quarterback or whatever. It hadn't changed him a bit. I think, if anything, it's made him more focused on improving our team and our program. And I mean, he's very unselfish. He gets it. I have complete confidence and trust in him, and that he's going to, focus on what's important.
How will you handle Luke Benzer this year?
Yeah, he's going to play safety for us right now, and then we'll
strictly a safety.
Well, we're going to rep him some at quarterback, and then we're going to see where he is on the depth chart after about 2 weeks of fall camp. If he's going to contribute significantly on our defense, he's going to play 30, 40 snaps a game, and he can stay on defense. If he's not, then we're going to move him back on offense and let him compete for the backup quarterback job with Chase Forrest. And so that's our plan. Chase had a great spring. We were probably pleasantly surprised on how well he executed during the spring, and his ability to do what we wanted to do was a little bit ahead of schedule. So we feel like we're in pretty good hands at that backup position.
And how will you handle Lasco, and where are you at the big running?
Yeah, well, same thing. This deal is a marathon, not a sprint. So we want to be able to protect Daniel. Running backs have a tendency to get beat up if they're carrying the ball 20, 30 times a game. We want to try to keep him healthy and spread out some carries. The good thing is we feel like we've got 4 or 5 really good running backs that can help us. And Calfani has really been productive this summer. I mean, our guys, the reports on him are really good. I mean, he's looked good. Going out and doing things this summer with our players and summer workouts, and he brings a different dimension. So when you look at Lasco, you look at Vic, you look at Calfani, you look at Trey Watson, we feel like we've got 4 pretty solid running backs.
In this coaching rotation this year, Sonny, you're going to handle the wide receiver.
I'm going to handle the outside receivers.
The outside.
Yeah. Jacob Peeler will handle the inside, which he did last year. He's a graduate assistant. So now he's full-time. He'll handle the inside guys, and I'll handle the outside guys with help from a graduate assistant.
Last year you had a guy who was about to enroll in classes at a junior college right out of high school, who ended up on the field for you just like a month later.
Yeah.
AJ Greathouse.
Yeah.
And I mean, how has he come along?
AJ got a lot better this spring. He was one of those kids that we wish we could have redshirted last year, but we couldn't. We needed him to play on special teams and to be on our coverage units and to give us some depth at a position we really had no depth at. So he was thrown into the fire a little bit, probably more quickly than we wanted to, but he responded well, and he had a good spring, and so he's certainly somebody that's going to be competing for playing time. Both he and Deron Brown. Deron was kind of a junior college player that we signed and went through spring football. Both those guys are improving. They're both good athletes, both have good size, both can run, and we think they can help us win.
Sonny, Jared talked about his added confidence that he has right now. How does that translate into his performance on the field?
Well, I mean, it feels better. It feels better for me to be here. Just knowing that we have an opportunity to have a good football team, and that it's not, it feels better for me. I know it feels better for him. It helps your decision making. It makes things. You're able to make faster decisions. You're able to see more. It also helps you not try to force things. I think he understands now that he can check the ball down, and we have good players that can make plays with the ball. We don't necessarily have to throw it 40 yards to have a 40-yard play, and I think that's the maturation that quarterbacks go through. And when that completion percentage goes up and we start completing more balls to guys, we start making more plays. And our offense works when you can throw 3-yard passes that turn into 60-yard touchdowns. That's when this thing gets going really good.
When you made the decision to go with him as a freshman, what was kind of the deciding factors?
Well, I think we saw the potential. He graduated early and went through spring football, and at the beginning of the spring, we thought, wow, this guy's pretty good. He can make all the throws, and then the more he played, the more comfortable he got. We just felt like he was the best guy, and we knew there was going to be growing pains as a program. mean, we knew that across the board. You know, we knew it was going to be a struggle, a tough year, and we thought, you know, we'll invest these reps in this young player. We think it's going to pay off on the back end, and so that was what we decided to do.
Coach, what something off-putting, not just with you, but other teams that have quarterbacks like this? They're almost more well-known as how they project than what they've accomplished.
Yeah, you know, all somebody's doing is really throwing a name out there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not like these general managers are saying that. You know, it's just somebody that really doesn't have a vested interest in any of it. And so I'm not trying to diminish that at all. I mean, I think Jared's one of the elite quarterbacks in college football, and he's going to have a great pro career. But just because some guy threw his name out there doesn't mean anything right now. I mean, it just doesn't. And the best thing is he gets that. He understands it. You know, it's all about performance for him, and he gets that. And he's excited about that.
Hey, Coach, when that started, you know, that kind of, you know, it wasn't about, hey, this kid's been a really good quarterback.
Well, yeah, go back and look at some of the names that guys have thrown out there. You know, and said this guy's going to be the first guy taken in the draft. I mean, go back and look at some of the past quarterbacks that people have said that about, and you know, they don't always work out. And, you know, so like I said, I'm not trying to diminish Jared in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying those things don't really mean much.
Those guys are tough. Not us, everybody's all looking ahead.
Yeah.
Let's just relax.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the conversation we had with his parents. And the great thing is they get it. I mean, they told us more than we told them that. so they get it, he gets it, and again, his ability to handle this, I think, is really impressive for a young guy.
Hey, Coach, which of the incoming?
Too thin with adding the wideouts to what you're.
No, not at all. No, not at all. And you know, the good thing is those guys have a lot of experience. You know, I think it's going to be really good for me. It's going to get me back and a little bit more involved, and which I'm comfortable doing. You know, and look, I'm not going to call plays. Tony's going to call plays. I'm not going to get involved in that. But I really enjoy coaching. I miss the relationship that you can develop with your players every day in that meeting room with them. I just miss that, and so I look forward to working with those guys. And I mean, it helps when you've got Kenny Lawler and Maurice Harris and you know, all the guys that we've got playing outside, Trevor Davis, and you know, those guys have played a lot of football, and so you know, surely I can't screw that up.
You've only got 4 full-time offensive coaches on the staff, I think.
Yeah.
Is the Hamilton hire done?
I think it's getting done. I mean, I've been here,
There'll be an
unfortunately.
offensive quality control.
Yeah, that's what it looks like it's going to
Hey,
be.
Coach, which of the incoming DBs are going to see the most time?
Well, that's a good question. I wish I knew the answer to that. You know, we all have ideas on that. I mean, I think Malik Psalms has proven that he physically has an opportunity to maybe come in and play. You know, he's got good size. He's, you know, 6'2", he's 185, 190 pounds. He bench pressed over 300 pounds, which, I mean, that's pretty impressive for a kid that's a high school corner coming out. He ran in the low 4.5s, and we tested him. I think he verticaled over 40 inches. So, you know, on paper, you say, okay, this guy may be ready. Well, you know, that doesn't really matter. It's how quickly can he pick things up, how, you know, what's his threshold for staying healthy, how hard is he going to compete, how much is he going to be able to handle adversity when it happens. I mean, maturity is the most important thing to be being able to play early. It's much more important than athletic ability.
How about the JC guys?
You know, I mean, we think, you know, Antoine Albert, Kahari Vanderbilt, you know, we think all those guys have an opportunity to play. Deron Brown, but we'll see. We'll see. And again, it's going to be the same transition with those guys. It's just going to be who can pick things up, you know, the quickest, who can adjust the quickest, because it's going to be different than what they've done in the past at the JC, and you know, you can stay healthy.
And the athletes like Powell, does Powell have a chance to be a DB?
Darius Powell?
Lonnie.
Oh, no. Lonnie's going to be a running back.
So Hardy Nickerson mentioned this is his first year where he gets a defensive coordinator back. So he has year 2. That continuity, how important is it, and have you already seen some of the benefits?
I think continuity in the coaching staff is important. I really do. I've always believed that. I think that, you know, I think that's how you improve, is you hear the same voice over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what's been good about our offense you know, in the last 18 years, you know, me going back to Kentucky is, you know, we were all taught to coach a certain way, and we all emphasized the same things, and it was a consistent voice all along. And so we've been fortunate to be able to hire coaches that, you know, have followed our philosophy, that get the way we want to teach, that understand it. And so when we do lose a coach, which you're going to do inevitably, they've grown up in the system. And so from a defensive standpoint, Art's very much that way. He's got a methodology for teaching, and you know, we were able to add John Lovett, who has worked with with Art a bunch of different places, and you know, they're on the same page. And so, as Hardy said, having Art back as a defensive coordinator, having Garrett Sashery back as a linebacker coach, having Fred Tate back as the defensive line coach, having Greg Burns back as the safeties coach, and now adding John Lovett, who's worked with Art many times through the years, I think it's just going to improve our defense.
Coach, you had a succession of games last year that I've rarely seen. And Arizona, Colorado, Washington State, UCLA games. Now, the year before you had injuries, which were bad. But can a team get emotionally exhausted too, the way you guys
Sure.
last year?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think you look at a little bit what happened to us last year against Washington, you know, where, you know, we were coming off of a tough loss, and felt like our guys were ready to play, and they were, you know, really geared up for that game, and we drive down, and we get down to the 1 yard line, and we fumble in the end zone, and they run it 99 yards back for a touchdown. And I think, you know, you could feel it on the sidelines. We just weren't there yet in terms of able to deal with that type of adversity. And as you said, I think we got a little bit mentally, you know, worn down. And I think that happens to young football teams, particularly teams that have lost some tough ball games and have played a lot of tough ball games. You know, it takes an emotional toll on you as a player. It certainly does as a coach. And, you know, and the good thing is, it does that when you're young. The older you get, the more battles you fought, and the more able you are to deal with those type of things.
Did you like playing the Oregon game in the 49ers Stadium last year, or would you rather play all the games?
I'd rather play them all at home.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a stretch of a schedule like you have this year where 4 out of 5 games are on the road, all against competitive teams?
Yeah, we had a run like that when I was at Louisiana Tech, and it was, you know, different, but we played at, you know, we were sitting there and kind of had a rough start, and we went to Ole Miss, we went to Utah State, it was good, we went to Nevada, it was good, we went to Fresno, it was good, and we went to Idaho. Now you think about that, and then we had 2 home games out of 7. So I had 5 road games, 2 home games out of a 7-game stretch. We were, you know, just trying to get the program turned. We won, believe it or not, all 7 of those ball games. You know, we sat back and looked at that part of the schedule, and I was like, "There's no way we're going to survive this," you know. And credit our players for playing hard and hung in there. And we figured out ways to win games, won some road games, and got it done. Won all 7 of them to close out that year, and won a conference championship. So, you know, the funny thing about teams is, you know, the step that gets you over the hump is when your players believe. When you're going to win a game, at some point maybe you should win, and against a good football team, and all of a sudden guys start believing that they can win these games. We're going to find a way to do it, and they start creating positive plays in critical situations. And that's how you get over the hump, and that's how you can start winning competitive games against good people. Because, you know, we're not going to, there's not many teams in this league that are just going to line up and win because they're more talented than everybody else. Everybody's talented. And so you have to be good in situational football. And we worked really hard this spring to become a good situational team. We'll work very hard this fall to become a good situational team, and hopefully that'll pay off on Saturday.
Speaking of your schedule, I was talking to Todd Graham yesterday, and he said at any level he doesn't remember getting to coach against you before, and you haven't faced off against them since 2012. And he talked about how strange it was that it's going to be the last game.
Yeah, it is a little bit strange. Some of the scheduling stuff, I don't really understand. I know there's a reason for it, but I don't really get it. You know, I think we'd all be more comfortable playing our rivals the last game of the season. You know, last year we played BYU after we played Stanford, which, you know, didn't make a lot of sense. And this year we're playing Arizona State. Now, again, look, scheduling, the schedule's a schedule. We're going to play it regardless of who it says and when we play it and all that. But I think everybody's more comfortable with that. But there's a reason why. I just don't know what it is. But yeah, we haven't had a chance to coach against him. I mean, he's done a great job at Arizona State. I got a lot of respect for Todd. I saw him as a high school coach. I used to recruit Allen High School when he was the head coach there. Recruited against him when he went to West Virginia. We both recruited the Dallas area. He was a very good recruiter. Worked really hard at it, and has done a great job at Arizona State. I think there'll be a big challenge for us. They got a good football team. They've been consistent. He's really done some good things with that program.
Another head coach, Gary Anderson, you were just mentioning, at Louisiana Tech, you guys had a couple good games, and that last one went right down to the wire.
Yeah, it was a crazy ball game. Yeah, we had a couple of crazy games with them. We beat them the year before in Logan. They came and beat us the next year in Ruston, and two really, ball games that could have gone either way. We could have lost the year in Logan and won the year in Ruston, but Gary's a good football coach. He's won everywhere he's been. It's funny, you look at I think a third of the coaches in the Pac-12 were in the WAC at the same time. You look at Chris was at Boise, Mike was at San Jose. Obviously Gary was at Utah State, and I was at Louisiana Tech. And so, we've all coached against each other. We're all pretty familiar with what the other guy does, and and it's kind of been fun coming up through the ranks with those guys.
How's Stephen Moore? What's his health?
Good. Yeah, he's great. He's strong. He had both shoulders worked on. He's had issues with those, and our thing was let's get him fixed and get him healthy. And he's stronger than he's ever been. He feels great, and as I said, he's another one of those guys that I think is probably a month ahead of schedule.
Is he cleared to start practice
right
away?
Start full go from day one.
How's Jalen and Nathan Broussard? They had some
Jalen's fine. I mean, he had hamstring issues that plagued him all of spring football, but he's been healthy. I think he's in a good spot, and Nathan Broussard's another one of those guys that has unfortunately been hurt for us for 2 solid years. He's got a chance to be a good player. We've got to bring him along slowly, just like we have to do with some of these other guys. We'll monitor his reps, as we go through fall camp. Just like we're going to do with a lot of guys, just like we did with Moose in the spring, we'll do the same thing with Moose in the fall.
Quentin Tartable, same thing?
Same thing with Quentin, yeah. And, I think all these guys respond differently to surgeries. I think Nate's in a really good place. I think he's probably a little ahead of schedule, and it feels that way. I think Quentin's probably right on schedule. So, we'll be smart with him. We'll bring him along, and the big thing is keep him healthy.
Hyatt and McClure, I heard you talk about them before. Will they be able to start practice right at the start?
Yeah, they'll both be at camp, and same thing, we'll monitor those guys and bring them along slowly, but, I think we're all pleasantly surprised with Stefan's recovery up to this point, but the worst thing we could do is set him back, so we've got to be really smart about how we bring him along.
Who's your center?
We'll see. Don't know yet. We'll know pretty quickly. We'll probably know after 4 or 5 practices.
So what about Jeff Copprich, another guy coming back from injury?
Is he
going to work in at all?
Yeah, I think Jeff's going to work into the running back rotation. I know that's what he wants to do. That's what we want him to do. In this day and age, you better have 5 or 6 good running backs because guys get banged up and beat up, and Jeff's certainly going to get in the mix and compete against those guys.
Sonny, when you look
We
at
have 5 minutes remaining with California. 5 minutes.
When you look at the career arcs of Jared and Cody Kessler, one took the very traditional route, be a backup, win a quarterback competition.
Right.
Jared was thrown into the fire. Is there no longer a traditional route anymore?
Yeah, there's not a traditional route for anything. For coaching, for quarterbacks, for any of it. I mean, it's all about the end game. Getting to a particular place, and it really doesn't matter how you get